Tara, how's the weather out in California?
It's actually 72 and sunny right now, no wind. So we've actually had a warmer winter this year. It's usually cold around this time.
It's not like that out here we're in the Boston area, Newton, so
Oh
it
yeah.
was 45 degrees now, but this morning it was 32. So,
Oh man. I don't know what snow looks like. It's always magical whenever I go up to the mountains because just not used to it.
yeah, it's a great area. You're up in the San Francisco area, Santa Clara.
We're Los Angeles.
Oh, you're in Los Angeles. Cool. Good. Well, we've got sunny in Chicago. All right, we're getting there. So, all right, why don't we get started? It's 3:35, and at least out here in the East Coast. And my name is Palo Pierce. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Eduporium, and I'd like to thank everybody attending today. We wanted to start a webinar series to kind of talk about some of the innovative STEM technology that we offer. And one of our primary partners that we've worked with for many years has been Ozobot, and we have the Ozobot Education team who will take us through some of their offerings in both a virtual robot that can be used in a remote and hybrid environment, and then also how it could actually move and work also in a classroom setting. So once again, I wanted to thank everybody for attending today. This is our inaugural webinar, so we're learning, and so if we make any mistakes, please bear with us. In regards to questions and answers, if you do put them up there, we will get back to you and to answer them and provide the answers to everybody who does attend from that perspective. So I wanted to introduce what Eduporium is. Eduporium, one of the things is we're a mission company. Our focus is attempting to provide easier access to STEM educational technology to help kids close the gap in the skills we believe you're going to need in the 21st century. And so we're a one-stop shop for that. And one of the things we like to do is work with you, understand your vision, and then basically make sure that if you're using the Ozobot products that you have the best solution to it, and also from a return on investment, make sure that you're getting the vision, your educational vision, and you're actually able to use the products successfully. And so training and PD are very much important segments of that. So with that, I'd like to hand this over to Natalie and Melissa and the Tara from Ozobot, and they will take us in and we'll learn a little bit about Ozobot's offering in the remote area. So let me stop share, and then I'm going to
is everyone able to see my screen? I believe I started sharing my screen.
Yeah, I can see it perfectly.
Okay, great, perfect. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Melissa Tui. I am the Ed Tech and Adoption Specialist here at Ozobot, and I'm joined by Tara and Natalie, and we'll do some quick introductions in just a second, but I did want to go over our agenda and our overview for today. We are going to cover Ozobot's 2 ways to code. We want to show you all about our new Learn Anywhere lessons. We'll do a quick overview of what lesson packages look like. We'll give you a couple of overviews of our introduction to Ozobot lessons, and Natalie will be demoing STEAM, ELA, and math lesson, and then we will have Q&A after that. So if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. We'd also really love to know how familiar everyone is with Ozobot. So if you could pop that in the chat just so we can get an idea of what everyone's ability level is with Ozobot, it would be really, really helpful and great. We're really excited to be here with you today. Again, my name is Melissa Tui. I'm the Ed Tech and Adoption Specialist here at Ozobot. I'm a former teacher. I taught first grade and kindergarten and founded a coding, engineering, and design thinking program in South LA. And I've coached teachers in implementing computer science. And when I'm not at Ozobot, I'm at UCLA pursuing my doctoral degree, where I am researching computer science implementation in elementary school settings. So I live and breathe computer science instruction. So I'm really excited to be with you all today. And I'll pass it to Tara to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tara. I have been an Ozobot veteran of 6 years. I was one of the original team members that helped brought BIT to market. Since then, we've seen Ozobot grow in the STEM fields from BIT to Evo, and now we have our virtual and remote lessons. So really excited to share those with you today. And I also work with some of our great education partners, including Eduporium. So really excited just to show you all of our new offerings. And then I'm going to pass on off to Natalie.
Thank you, Tara, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for spending some time with us. It's great to see that most of you are familiar with Ozobot. I was just checking out the chat. So really excited to show how we have created remote-friendly lessons specific to the current climate we're in education. I do want to note, though, that everything that we show you can be used 100% remote. It can be used in a hybrid format, or it can be used brick and mortar when you are back in school. Prior to joining Ozobot, I spent many, many years as a classroom teacher, like many of you probably started out, teaching 5th grade, 3rd grade, and kindergarten. Then I transitioned into focusing on computer science immersion as an instructional coach, working with teachers grades K through 6th in multiple states along the East Coast. And now I am working on the curriculum development with Ozobot. So for those of you familiar with Ozobot, or those of you just diving in, as you do, we're always looking for input on lesson ideas or suggestions. So if there's something that you're really looking for, definitely let us know in the future. And Melissa, I'll give it back to you.
Great. Actually, I'm going to pass it back to Tara to talk about Ozobot and our 2 ways to code for those of you that are not as familiar with Ozobot.
Yeah, it did look like in the chat, some of you have just found out about Ozobot, so I'll just give a brief overview of our 2 ways to code. So our first way to code is screen-free with colors. We have actually created a set of color sequences that we call color codes, and Ozobot it reads each individual color code as a different command. So you can make the robot speed up, slow down, turn right, turn left, and the student simply draw these color codes with markers and paper. So this is a great way to introduce coding and programming to students as young as kindergarten and help them learn that logical reasoning and sequential thinking behind coding. And of course, we all know students are really great at coloring, so this is not intimidating at all when you're trying to teach them the introduction to coding. Our second way to code is on screens with blocks. So if you're familiar with any block-based editors such as Tinker or Scratch, our editor works very similarly. It's called Ozoblockly. It's web-based, and you log on to ozoblockly.com. And you can kind of take a look at our editor there. You simply just drag and drop the blocks together to create a program. And then you can send the program via Bluetooth to the robot and it will execute the commands. So that's just a very, very brief overview. If you want a more in-depth demo on that, you can definitely reach out to the Eduporium team and they can give you some more information on that. I'll go ahead and pop it back over to Melissa so she can get started.
Great, thank you. Today we're going to mainly cover our Learn Anywhere lessons, which is a new offering that we have created in light of the situation with COVID. We know every single teacher in every single school, every single parent and student are in different circumstances. It's not the same for any 2 people or students or teachers. And we really wanted to create materials for educators that would work in any scenario. So what I am going to share with you is our lesson package and what these Learn Anywhere lessons look like. These can be used in hybrid, remote, and in-person settings, as Natalie mentioned, and we'll give you some tips on how you could use them in all those settings. But as a quick overview, we are developing 2nd through 5th grade lessons. We do have a handful of middle school lessons that have been released and are coming soon, which Natalie will talk about in a little bit. But we do recommend that These lessons are paced at 1 a week, and they're all standards aligned. So every lesson is aligned to one ISTE, one CSTA, and one Common Core Math or ELA standard, depending on the subject, or NGSS. All of these lessons, again, they will work in any setting. They include a synchronous learning plan. So for any teacher that is an expert in computer science, if you do not need an instructional video or any extra support to help you instruct, you have that textbook, classic textbook lesson plan there for you. For any teachers that would like that extra support or just want to share an instructional video with their students to self-pace and self-guide, every lesson has an instructional video attached to it. Again, they're standards aligned. There's a student activity guide. So if you have any students with special needs or need an printed out anchor of how to accomplish the lesson, that guide is there for the students. But again, all of that content is covered in the video, so the video should suffice, but we did include that activity guide in case students had special needs or circumstances where they needed a hard copy printed out for themselves. We've also included all the activity sheets and potential solutions or answer keys. And you can find all of these lessons, I just want to show you very quickly, in Ozobot Classroom. It's our new dashboard. It's our all-in-one place to get everything you need when it comes to Ozobot. This is completely free. You can sign up for a free account. And I'm just going to show you how to find these lessons. If you click on the left panel here, we have a remote friendly filter here. You can also note that here on the right-hand side, there's this remote friendly icon, which denotes that it has all of those materials in the lesson, that instructional video and the fully fledged lesson plan. Our lesson library does consist of both internally developed lessons and submissions from teachers all over the world. So you'll find a mix of stuff we've created in-house and stuff that teachers have contributed on their own to our library. So you'll notice here, for example, this identifying fractions was submitted by a teacher. It's not remote friendly because they did not include an instructional video to go along with it. We also have the filter here. So if you want to apply that filter, you can get all of our remote friendly offerings with that filter. But moving on, again, you can find these lessons completely for free in Ozobot Classroom. This is what a traditional lesson plan looks like. It's included in the materials. These are just samples of some answer keys that I wanted to show you so you knew what the materials looks like. Some ways that we recommend implementing these lessons in your classroom. You could use the video in a synchronous setting and do an I do, we do, you do model using the video or not using the video. You can also use this as an opportunity for independent practice for students, share the video with them, and then have discussion questions with them afterwards as a group during your synchronous time. If you have any other ideas that pop into your head of how you think it would be useful to use these lessons in your classroom, feel free to share in the chat as well. We'd love to have this be a thought partner session and a brainstorming session because we know everyone's going through some really tough challenges right now. What I'm going to quickly cover is our introductory lessons, and then Natalie is going to dive into some content-based lessons. But we start all of these lessons, we do recommend that students start with our Get to Know Ozobot and Introduction to Color Codes lessons. Our first lesson covers the hardware components of the bot, and I will play a quick clip so that you can see the look and feel of these videos.
Hi everyone, Miss Tui here. We are going to get to know your Ozobot today. For today's lesson, you will need an Ozobot Evo, a pencil, your Get to Know Evo worksheet, and optionally, if you'd like to color, markers, colored pencils, or crayons. In today's lesson, you will be introduced to Evo's various hardware components. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to identify and label Evo's hardware. Before we jump in, let's review some vocabulary. Today, we will be exploring Evo's hardware. What is hardware? Hardware can be defined as the physical parts of a computer or a robot. As we go through the different hardware components of the bot, follow along on your worksheet to label the different parts of Evo. So the rest of this video goes on to cover all the hardware components. We guide students through every single part and provide an explanation. I wanted to share that clip just to show you that we take all of that heavy lifting and we do it for you. We cover the objectives of the lesson, the materials, everything the student could possibly need to be successful in the lesson is covered in that video. So we've really been thoughtful about what teachers need and how we can best support you so that you can focus on making sure your students get the best instruction. In the slide deck, I do include other clips, so you're welcome to come back and take a look. I'm not sure if this slide deck will be recorded or, I'm sorry, will be shared or posted anywhere, but if it is, you're welcome to come back and take a deeper dive into the contents. But the next 3 lessons are all about Ozobot's line following capabilities. So students learn how to calibrate the bot. They learn about drawing lines for the bot to follow. And if you're familiar with basic training, which are Ozobot lessons that are in our lesson library, this is very similar to basic training and covers all of those concepts. That is the first lesson where they just focus on calibrating and line following. In the second lesson, they learn all about the color codes and practice drawing the color codes. They also learn about symmetric and asymmetric codes, and they do some debugging where they have to draw these figures and then determine whether the bot would follow or execute the color codes in these circumstances. So they're jam-packed with a lot of really great content to make sure that students know exactly how the bot works and how to use the bot. And in the last lesson, we talk about the bot's directionality. So students learn that when the bot comes at an intersection, it will randomly choose which way to go unless there is a color code that codes it to turn a specific direction. And so they get more practice with that, and they learn all about the line switch codes as well, which means that the bot will travel over a gap and look for a new line. So again, there's clips here for you to check out. I know we're a little bit limited on time, and I want to make sure that Natalie has some time to show you some of our really great content integrated lessons. So I'm going to pass it over to her. And Natalie, would you like me to stop sharing my screen so that you can pull up the lesson?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll grab it. Thanks. All right, hopefully y'all can see my screen. I think so.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So just to give you an example of the integrated content that we're working on to be delivered in a remote-friendly setting, for these particular lessons that I will be sharing, your students would need their bots. I know there was something mentioned about a remote scenario where the students do not have their bots, and we are going to show you some Ozobot challenges that your students can access that they do not need bots for. As far as our remote-friendly lessons go, as Melissa mentioned, they all have that mini lesson component in a video. So you can assign via Ozobot Classroom the lesson to your students, and they can self-pace, walk through the video and complete along with Melissa, or you can show the video virtually and you complete the activity or the lesson along with your students. All of our lessons have been given a denoted grade, but just so you know, that really doesn't necessarily mean that this example is just specific for 4th grade. The concept is in division. So if you have a 3rd grader, who is advanced and ready for a division, they could absolutely do this. 5th graders, great review. So I do encourage you, when you check out our lesson library, not to be so focused on the grade level, but more so focus on the activity and the concepts, because you definitely can plug and pull and mix dependent on what your students are doing. So you begin with your video, then your students would get the handouts necessary for the activity. For this particular division maze, the students are going to need a blank map template where they will complete their math, and then they will need their division maze color code key. They will solve their division or find the quotients to determine the missing color codes to successfully get Ozobot from start to finish. So it's just a fun way of reviewing division or practicing division. And it's also a great way for students to get direct feedback on if their division has been completed correctly. Because if their Ozobot does not make it from the start to the finish, they know that some of their division is not correct. So it's a great way for them to debug, but more so problem solve on their own quotients. This activity has two different division mazes, so they can either complete both, or you could differentiate by having half the class do one, half the other class do the second one. And then this would be our example of the solutions. This particular lesson is an example of a set solution for all students. So we have some lessons that are oriented where they are more open-ended, creative, and then there's lessons that are designed in this manner where it's really focused on the content and have your students master division or where might they be struggling. So I'm going to go ahead and hopefully share my tabletop with you. If you wanted to click on my name over in the, I don't know, you all are on my right side of my screen, but if you click on me, my camera view would become full screen for you if you're having a hard time seeing my screen on the side.
And Natalie, they can also click on the view in the top right corner and click on full screen to adjust it to see your full screen as well. And if you stop sharing your screen, I think you
will it get bigger?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think that works. So if you now, if you're an attendee, you can click on speaker and full screen to get an up close view of Natalie's paper.
All right, perfect. So this is an example of the blank template maze that the students would get for this activity. And first and foremost, they are going to work around the maze to solve their division. So I know it's kind of hard for you to see, so I will narrate it aloud. The first division problem is 40 divided by 5. So I would plug in my answer. Down here, I have 6 divided by 3. And we would encourage the students to complete all the division first, and then they can go ahead using their color codes key to correlate with the correct answers. So for my first missing color code, I had a quotient of 8. So if I look at my key for division maze 1, I see that blue, black, green, and red is my missing color code. So using the markers, I would go ahead and I would plug in the color code sequence. For time's sake, I'm not going to sit here and color for you all. So we're going to pretend that I completed all of my division as a math whiz. And I have completed my map, inputting all of those missing color codes to check my responses. Once the map is complete, I can go ahead and I can run my bot through my maze to check my answers. I'm just going to quickly calibrate because he did turn off on me. All right. So let's see, hopefully I can put my bot on start. And it's going to read all of my codes. First was the zigzag. Then based on this quotient, it should have been a slow code. Next was the spin. And so you can see how this is an activity specific in a remote setting that once the students have the map and their color codes key, this is something that they could really complete mostly independently. And then they can, as a class, you can check. I'm not sure why he stopped. Why did he stop? He's not reading that for some reason. Okay, well, we'll go that way. Maybe I should have colored it. I printed it. So if your students have their map and they have their color codes key, again, this is something that they really could complete mostly independently once the directives are given, or you could share the instructional video and it walks them through. I must be my bot. walks them through some step-by-step instructions. Okay, and so again, reason I wanted to show this lesson in particular is for you to see that some of our lessons are formatted in a sense where it's a explicit answer. We're looking for set solutions, and let's see if he likes it better. We're having lots of bot defects over here.
And what I just want to point out, what Natalie just did is she calibrated the bot. So that's really important to point out, because she said she printed the page rather than drew it. So the bot does need to be able to see the contrast between the marker that was used and then the white paper. So that's why she did the calibration. So really important step there.
Yes, and also with the calibration, as you know, a lot of it has to do with the lighting. So it's always important to have your students recalibrate when they're beginning a lesson, because I know my lighting, just from the weather and the outdoor light coming in, has changed. So here is one example of a plug and apply where students can complete for a set solution. Another example of a lesson. Again, this one's oriented towards 3rd grade, but you can absolutely use it with multiple grades. This is an ELA example, and the focus or emphasis is on adverbs and verbs. This allows a little bit more leeway for your students to get creative. So for this particular lesson, they are going to be utilizing a word bank filled with verbs and adverbs to complete a story frame. Then based on their story, they are going to program their bot to demonstrate the verbs and adverbs using color codes. So this is another activity. They need 2 different activity sheets. One is the story, the other is the map. Here's the example of the story. So I'm going to read it and then I will show you it in action. So Ozobot skated eagerly to the park. Based on my map, these 2 color codes are going to demonstrate Ozobot moving eagerly or quickly, and then a skating motion. First, it slid swiftly down the slide. Next, it skipped quickly to shoot a basket on the basketball court, then danced slowly to the soccer field. When it got to the field, it played happily with a friend. Suddenly, Ozobot heard a relative calling its name. It was time to leave. It skated tiredly all the way home. So you can see how this is a variation of lessons where there is leeway for the students to be creative, and you should have some different products based on all of your students if they were to complete this activity, which is great for them to be able to share. All right, so if we go back to our video, to complete this map, students will utilize the color codes key or the color codes chart, which they do have access to in Ozobot Classroom on their home screen. And what's fun is that the students, obviously, they are demonstrating verbs and adverbs, so they're getting to see them in action, which is going to help them better decipher and understand the different parts of speech, but they're also bringing their story to life, which we love having any kind of story in action. So ideally, the students would either read their story ahead of time, like I did, and then run their bot, or you can challenge the students to read while their bot performs the different actions. Oh, you guys can't see, it's running off. And this bot cooperated a whole lot better than the other one. So I'll have to see what's going on with my other friend. But as you can see, we have just in those 2 examples, they're very different. And that's just a very quick snapshot of the lessons that we have in our library. To give you some additional insight, we have some ELA and math remote lessons available to you. You can see second grade what the topic focuses are for ELA, irregular and actually regular plural nouns, and then vowel addition, random prefixes. Math has what's my value, all about place value, odd or even shopping, money mountains. So again, depending on a concept you want to introduce, review, or just an activity for fun, all of these could potentially be pulled and utilized with your students. As far as middle school goes, we have a narrative and action series that I will highlight here briefly. We also have an engineering design process series that are both utilizing color codes. We're in the process of transitioning, mostly focusing on Ozobot for middle school. So the math piece will be coming very soon. And here's just another couple examples of ways that you can integrate core content using the Ozobots in a remote setting, hybrid, or even in your classroom, depending on what your current situation is. So second grade, you can see that this is another type of lesson where there is a clear-cut right or wrong answer. The students are learning about directionality, and they are programming their bot to turn and move to the correct plural noun. And then they're utilizing that noun to complete a sentence. This third grade mix it up multiplication example would be a lesson that is oriented for students to program a randomizing function. So students are programming their bot to randomly choose a number. And this can be used really and truly for any grade level. You could use this map for division, fractions, decimals, whatever the case might be. But for this specific lesson, the activity sheet that correlates is multiplication. So the students would run their bot to randomly create a equation with two numbers that they're finding the product of, and then they're going to solve to find the answer. They're then going to apply what they know. For this example, it's about the commutative property, but you could easily plug and pull this lesson and go through all of the different properties if you wanted, reinforcing the different properties using the same map or activity. Here's an ELA example, similar to the adverbs and verbs that I showed you. This is a open-ended but guided activity. So the students are actually given a blank map template. Their map has a start, their map has a finish. The rest of the map is up to them to design based on the prepositions and the nouns that they use in their story. So they're going to use the sentence frames to complete a story, showing their knowledge and application of prepositions, and then they're going to use images and the actions of their bot to demonstrate the meaning of those prepositions. So we have Ozobot, who is going to zoom along a row of trees, then it's going to spin around or beside the railroad track. So you can see how the bot is going to help reinforce visually the concept of prepositions. Fifth grade, again, the concept is for students to apply their knowledge of ordered pairs. So students are choosing their own ordered pairs, and then they are actually using colors, not color codes, but they're using colors to represent their knowledge of their ordered pair. One color to represent the X value and a different color to represent the Y value. And then they are utilizing their bot to move to a direct location. You could have a ton of fun with this activity with your bot. If you're familiar with like Battleship, this is a great, you could play Battleship with your students. More so, you give them the ordered pair and then they have to program it if they have their bots at home, or they could partner up. For middle school, this is one of the lessons of the 3-lesson series. It guides the students through writing a narrative. They get to choose if they're going to write a personal narrative or creative narrative, and then goes through the basics as far as what the components of the narrative needs. And then they, again, this is an open-ended example of the map. They are going to create a map using lines and color codes that has their bot, the main character of their story, represent, in this case, the introduction. For our STEAM series, the students are focusing on the engineering design process. So there's 3 different lessons where the students get to practice, walk through, and apply the engineering design process. Each lesson, the students are posed with different scenarios with problems that they have to solve. And this is just an example of 2 of the maps that stimulate those problems. And Tara, I'm going to pass it to you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to cover some of these questions that were being asked about having robots or not having robots because schools have been remote. So we have had a lot of conversations with educators regarding this exact topic. And I just want to say a lot of these lessons do require you having the robot and the students being able to work with the robot at home. And some ways that educators have been able to purchase these is because their schools have been going one-to-one and the students have been given devices such as Chromebooks to be able to work with the devices at home. And because these lessons cover ELA, math, and they're remote friendly, they fall under a lot of categories for grants and CARES funding. So if it is something that you're interested in, you can definitely take a look at some of the grant resources available to you so that you can purchase more robots to send home with the students if they're fully remote. And I know that Paulo and the Eduporium team can probably help work with you, give you some more information about that, and then help you get some Ozobots so that you can send them all home to your students. For those of you who don't have the funding right now to be able to do one-to-one, or maybe the funds will come after January, we do have a solution called Shape Tracer, which does not require a robot at all. So I'm going to have Melissa just quickly cover that before we go into the student view for the remote friendly lessons.
Yes, thanks, Tara. So what we recommend for those of you whose students don't have access to bots at home, if you go to ozobot.com and click on this Create section, and you click on Challenges. Again, you go to ozobot.com, click on Create, and you click on Challenges. I'll actually pop this link into the chat so that everybody can access it. But this is where we have our Ozoblockly games. And these are really, really great for any students that don't have bots at home, because let me open one up to show you. But you can see here, I actually started working on one of these. There's a simulator here. All the blocks that are needed to accomplish the task are here. If your students do have bots at home, they can load the code onto the bot using this feature right down here and actually run the code on their bot. But for those of you that aren't able to have bots at home with your students, they can actually build code here, hit run, and you can see that they can actually go through all 10 levels of this game using that simulator. These games are really great because they not only teach computer science concepts, but it's logical reasoning, sequencing, and to be quite honest with you, Shape Tracer 2, it's pretty challenging once you get past, when you get into those upper levels. I'll be honest with you, some of these levels have taken me quite a while to figure out, and I've had to iterate multiple times. So it's a really, really great challenge for your students. And we recently released Ozotown, which was released earlier this summer. So this is a new game that has been released as well. And it's that same format, and students don't need the bot, but if they do have it, they can have an enhanced experience. And I'll go back to student view so that Tara can tell us more about student view.
Yeah, so with Student View, this applies directly to those remote friendly lessons. So educators are able to go into Ozobot Classroom, select the lessons such as the ones that Natalie just showed us, and then send them to students who are remote through Google Classroom. So we do integrate right now with Google Classroom. And we are looking at integrating other LMSs. So if you're using Schoology, Canvas, Clever, we will be integrating those soon. So we just wanted to start with Google Classroom. We had surveyed a lot of educators, and it seemed like that was the LMS that most schools were using, especially when they were moving to remote. So let me go ahead and just share my screen so that you can see our remote view. So when I'm in Ozobot Classroom and say I want to use a mix it up multiplication lesson with my class, I will be able to assign that directly through Google Classroom to the students. And once I click the assign button, the students will log into their Ozobot, or not Ozobot Classroom, sorry, Google Classroom emails, and they'll see the assignment has been emailed directly to them, so they can click on the Mix It Up multiplication lesson. And when they click on open, they're simply just going to sign into their Google Classroom email, and then they will be brought directly to the assignment. And they can click on this assignment and start working through it remote at home. So I'm going to click on my to-do section, and these are my different lessons that I have been assigned. So when you start that lesson, it will tell you exactly how long it will take to complete the lesson. And then we'll always kind of prompt the students to update their Ozobots or their Evos before they start the lesson to make sure that the correct firmware is on the robot and that they're all ready to go. So we'll click next, and yes, I've updated my bots. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. My bot is already updated. And then it will take us to the next page. Here it will tell the students what they'll be learning this lesson, and then they'll click on next, and it will always give the students a list of the materials that they may need for this lesson. So for this particular lesson, they will need an Evo, the division maze activity sheets, the color code markers, the pencil, and then stickers for corrections. That's optional. They don't need that. Now, we know that schools are handling giving out paperwork to the students in different ways. So if you have a situation where you're printing the materials and handing them off to the students weekly, then you can definitely print those for the students and then give it to them for them to take home. But if they're completely remote and you don't have interaction with the students whatsoever, then you click on the print activity sheets button right here, and they can just print those easily at home. So there's two ways for them to get those sheets. And then I'll click on the next button again, and you'll see here are those videos, the remote friendly videos. The students will work through each one. These are very quick bite-sized videos just made to walk them through the activity. I know that Melissa had showed it to us at the very beginning, so I won't click on any of these. So once they've finished going through all of the videos, there is a set of 7 videos for this particular lesson. They will click on next, and here's where they will submit their work. So they can simply take a picture of their activity sheet, and then they can upload it right here. Once they're finished uploading it, they can put any comments about the lesson. And then once they've submitted that, upload, there will be another page that they'll click on. It's the last page, and they'll be able to rate the lesson essentially. So they can let you know how they felt about the lesson, if they really liked it or they just didn't get it whatsoever. So you'll be able to receive that feedback from the students. But once they've submitted their work, then it goes directly back to your Google Classroom account, and you can grade it through Google Classroom. You can send them feedback, or if they just really didn't understand the lesson at all, you can just reassign it to them. So it all just works seamlessly with Google Classroom. You don't have to create any additional accounts or passwords to be able to log in. You just access it all right there through Google Classroom, which is so nice. So that is the student view section. I'll stop sharing my screen, and then I'll hand it back over to Melissa.
Sure, thank you, Tara. So we got a couple of questions in both Q&A and in the chat. The first one, I just wanted to make sure, Donna, I have to apologize. I accidentally clicked the wrong button to respond to you, but she asked the question whether the remote friendly lessons would work for Ozobot Bits. And so for those of you that do have Bit in your classrooms, all of the color code lessons will be compatible with Bit. When we release Ozoblockly lessons, that's when you will want to take a closer look at the lessons. The differences between Evo and Bit are that Bit does not support BLE Bluetooth connection, sound, or the front LED light displays. So you'll just want to pay careful attention to the lesson to see if any of those blocks are included, and you'll want to just have some instructions and modify the lesson so that it is Bit compatible. Please let us know if you have more questions about that, Dawn. And I believe Maureen had the same question as well. Kim just asked a really great question, saying that their Ozobots are not leaving the building, and if Shape Tracer would be a good option for second grade who have not seen Ozobots yet. I would say that it's something you can definitely try out with your second graders. They'll probably need a lot of guidance and support. So it might be something that you may want to either create a recording of or have them do synchronously with you during class time. Or for any of your high flyers, you can assign it to them to see if they can get through all of those challenges. Shape Tracer 2 is very tricky and complicated, or it can be quite tricky and complicated. So we encourage your students to try, but that frustration element might come into play. So just be ready to support them and to answer any questions if they do get frustrated or they're not sure how to proceed. Something I did want to share with you, Kim, is in the chat, I'm going to drop a link to a YouTube video of a previous webinar that we hosted with Emma Noonviller, who is a pre-K teacher in New Jersey. And she actually taught pre-K. Her students did not have bots at home, but she still ran Ozobot lessons with her students and engaged them and activated their learning. It was really incredible to see her do that with pre-Kers. So if she can do it with pre-K students, I'm sure any age students would be able to be successful in these types of lessons as well. So I popped that into the chat. I'll also pop in the link to the slide deck for anyone to check that out if you're looking for ways to teach with Ozobot without your students having bots accessible at home. And we encourage everyone to check out our webinar page. We have all of our past webinars and resources there. Going back to Shape Tracer 1, Shape Tracer 2, and Ozotown, we did host past webinars on how to teach the content, implement the content. We had Lisa Richardson, who is one of our certified educators. She joined, I believe, 1 or 2 of those webinars, and she shared how she was able to distribute those lessons with her high schoolers, and they also did not have bots at home. So there's a lot of really great tips and tricks in our past webinars. We highly encourage everyone to check that out. Tara or Natalie, is there anything else you wanted to add on any of those points?
Yeah, there was actually a question in the Q&A that said, it was from Julie, are the challenges available to be sent through Google Classroom? So the only lessons that you can send through Google Classroom right now are the remote friendly lessons. So I'm just going to share my screen very quickly again and show you how to find those remote friendly lessons. So when you go to Ozobot Classroom and then you click on the lessons button, you can filter right here with remote friendly, and then you click on only show remote friendly lessons. So these are those lessons that you are able to integrate with Google Classroom and then send them remote to the student. So there's quite a few that we have now, and I know Melissa and Natalie are working on some more. So as those are complete, we will be posting them right here in our lesson library. So definitely check those out. And then there was another question, is Google Classroom the only LMS integration? Yes, currently it's the only integration, but we are looking at other LMSs, Schoology, Clever, Canvas, and we'd really like your feedback too. Depending on which LMSs you're using most, we can prioritize. So if we hear that a lot of schools are using Clever over Canvas, then we'll integrate Clever first. So definitely reach out to us and let us know what you're using and what you'd like to see so that we can get that going for you guys.
I'm also curious if are you sharing your screen right now, Tara? Or
Yeah, I
okay.
can stop if you
So
like.
no, you're fine. I was gonna say where you are. So if you are not utilizing Google Classroom, you still can share the lesson materials with your students by sharing the links to the PDFs or the links to our videos. So just because there's not a direct sync between Ozobot Classroom and necessarily the LMS that you're using, you can still share the resources from Ozobot Classroom with your students. It would just be a little bit of a different process. If any of you are interested in seeing that, just let us know and we can show you that quickly too.
That's a really good point, Natalie. Yeah, so you're not excluded from the content. And Tara, if you click on preview, we should be able to easily see that. When you click on preview, you have this fully fledged lesson plan, and at the top there are those materials. If you scroll down just a little bit, Tara, we have that instructional video. That section on the right that says instructional video. If you scroll up just a little bit,
Yep, right there.
We include the full video, which is the full length video. All of our videos are approximately 10 minutes long. We want to make sure students are engaged and having fun. So we don't want to, bore them to death with a 30, 45-minute video. They're quick and fun and easy. We also include a playlist style video where that second link there, if you click on that link, it actually takes you to a playlist. So depending on what your students prefer or what you think is better for your students, we include all of those materials so that you can decide what's best for your students.
And just
Great
to go
point,
back
Natalie.
to,
Yeah.
I think it was the question that Kim had about how she could utilize this with her students who are at home. I absolutely would plug and pull, second grade lessons. And if you have a camera accessible, just walk the students through the lesson and as they give you the inputs to the answers and make it just a whole class experience. So I know that's not ideal, but that's another way to keep computer science immersion going with your students if that's what you're trying to do.
Great. Are there any other questions? All right, I guess we'll pass it back to the Eduporium team.
Well, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Tara. Excellent job in giving us a good overview of the Ozobot, different activities and things like that can be done both in the classroom and in remote. So we want to thank everybody today for attending. If you have any questions or feedback or anything like that, you can just send us an email at sales@Eduporium or palo, P-A-L-O, @Eduporium, and we will get back to you. We will make sure we go through the Q&A and chats and just make sure everything was answered. I'm pretty sure they were, but if they're not, we will make sure that that's there. So with that, I am going to, let me just see this last Q&A. There's one more question, which is, what was the past webinar of high school teachers teaching without Ozobots in hand?
Yes, that would be let me pull up the links to them, but it would be the Shape Tracer 2 webinar and the Ozotown webinar. I believe Lisa, she was in one for sure, but I can't remember if she was in both. But let me pull up those links and I'll pop them in the chat for the video. And then you can also scroll down on our webinar page to find Ozotown and Shape Tracer 2. Yes, yeah. I do see Lisa on both of these, I believe. So I'll pop those into the chat.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
I myself have played around with Shape Tracer, the version 1, and went through all 8 lessons. It was a good reminder, looking up in that right-hand corner of what the shape that needs to be made and trying to do it, virtually was great. And we want to thank our partners at Ozobot and for the great show today. And I don't have anything else to Tara, Melissa, or Natalie, anything else? So you guys all set?
Yeah, just thank you everyone for joining us. We know this is tough. It's December. We know
Yeah.
this is the longest month of the year for educators, and
Yeah.
there's so much craziness going on. So we just appreciate everyone taking their time, and everyone stay safe and healthy.
Yeah, same way from Eduporium, we want to thank you guys all for all the work you do. And I know it's a really tough time to be educating right now, and our heart is out for you. So stay safe, and thank you very much for everybody. Thanks for attending.
Bye.
Bye-bye.